When it comes to the issues that are happening in Israel right now, it seems as though everybody's an expert and a lot of people have definitive opinions. But today, you are going to hear from the perspective of a Palestinian man, a very dear friend of mine who has a lot of insight. And if you've got questions about the other side of this issue, you're going to get those answers. So hold on to the seat of your pants. This is going to be a good one. Well, guys, listen, I got a good one planned for you today, and I have to tell you, you are in for an incredible treat. Now, before we do this, I just want you to understand that the perspective that you hear, I promise you, is going to be real. It's going to be true, and I think you're going to really be blessed hearing a different perspective than mine. Now, I know many of you may or may not know this, but my mom and my dad were both born and raised in Egypt, so I happen to be a guy of Egyptian descent who is defending the position of the Israelis as we're talking about this. And now I have a guy that's right here by me, who, by the way, is a very dear friend of mine. He's one of my board members. He's the head of security at our church. Mason is a first generation from a Palestinian father, born in another country other than the United States of America, but still with a significant understanding of our language and culture. He is what you would call Palestinian. And Mason's got a really interesting background because he's fluent not only in Arabic, but also in Spanish, because he also has South American roots, which is, it's just a cool, there's some interesting things with all of that. But if there's anybody that has a good understanding of all of this stuff, it's undoubtedly you. I thought it would be good to get that perspective. I think that you have a lot to offer, and you've got some, me and you have talked about this stuff extensively. We've been talking about it before it ever, happened over there. So it's getting crazy in Israel right now. All this stuff with Gaza is, I definitely, it's out of control. I wish that Hamas never did what they did in the first place, but now Israel has to act. But there's a lot of people that are turning this around and calling Israel evil, unjust, every kind of curse word in the book. We'll get to that in just a minute. But bro, tell us a little bit about yourself first, and then let's just talk about the basics of the problem, and then we'll just go from there.
So as you mentioned, a Hispanic mom, Palestinian father, who left right in the 60s because a number of things that they couldn't have businesses and just a number of things that weren't palatable for him to take over there, in the feeling of the Jews taking their land and everything. I'm sure was a cause of that. It's not something we spoke about.
Okay, so let's back up for a second. You said because they couldn't have any businesses. So that means your dad was having a hard time being able to be like a business owner in Israel?
Well, he was looking at starting off, and right, the great American dream. Everybody knew of the United States, right? And during that time, there was a number of waves after 48, after Israel was established, of Palestinians. During the wars, we see Lebanese leave to Mexico, and Palestinians went to Colombia, other parts of South America, just as Jews had migrated to Argentina and different parts too, right? And those happen during conflicts most of the time, right? You want to start a family and live someplace, and you feel encumbered by whatever the situation may be, perceived or real, right? So he went to South America. I was born over there. My mom was born over there, and came over here, naturalized as a U.S. citizen, as a young child of U.S. citizen parents.
Okay, so I want to back up for a second. So when your dad left Israel, he left because he was genuinely, as a Palestinian living over there, felt like he did not have an equal opportunity. Is that how I'm understanding it? Or was it just more like, I'd rather be in a different part of the world and give my family a better life?
I think that the second, the latter,
more along
is
that.
more. Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. Because even still at those times, there was still opportunity for Palestinians in that area, and everything. It wasn't what it is made out to be.
Right. Okay. That's fair enough. So then you're in South America, and then from a relatively young age, you guys immigrate over to the United States.
Correct. Came to the United States. My father started as a businessman selling items, connected with family and stuff, because there was a number a family that came over from Palestine at the time, they know as Palestine, Israel, to South America, cousins and relatives. And they all migrated to the U.S. also. They helped each other out, started businesses, started successful businesses, everything from stores to liquor stores to furniture, the whole 9 yards.
Okay,
And
interesting.
built up the American dream, have a number of relatives who are very, very successful in that aspect.
Yeah, and I mean, and you obviously been raised well by your father in the business sense because you have a pretty strong background in all of that.
Yeah, and he did well enough. He was a shrewd businessman, like most people from the Middle East, Arabs and Jews alike.
Yep.
And he was a millionaire at 20 years into it, if not,
Yep.
So he did well for us.
Okay, so let's hit the fast forward button for just a second and look at everything that's been going on and what's been happening. I do want to back up to one thing. Unlike your father, you are a Christian.
Correct.
Your dad is still Muslim.
Correct.
Interesting. Your mom's a believer.
Correct.
So that's quite a dynamic there. How does your dad feel? If you were to put a peg on it, does he fall in line with what is traditionally shown on TV and in the media that a Palestinian might feel concerning what's going on in Israel and what's happening?
I would venture to say yes. He's used to watch and he understood it. So he used to watch Al Jazeera in Arabic years ago. Mm-hmm. And I'd watch it too. But
well, me and you still watch it every now and again.
It gets, if you're not in the right mindset,
yep,
it gets you in the wrong place.
Oh, right? Yeah.
And so he understood that he even on his own volition stopped watching it because it put him in the wrong place.
Yep.
So the media is a powerful tool to indoctrinate and manipulate people, right?
Yep.
So he understood that. But yes, he is a patriot at heart, like most nationals are when they immigrate to another place. He feels for his family over there that's still over there, generations, the ability to, whether it's by their circumstance or not, by their volition or not, to travel freely in the country that they thought was theirs, right? So there's a lot that impedes them from rationalizing that the way it should be rationalized.
Okay, so along those lines, let me ask you a question, and we're going to just generalize this, and then we'll get a lot more specific and get granular about it, okay? What is your general feeling about the situation over there? I'm not asking you to create a series of complex, because this is complex in many ways, and yet at the same time, it's very simple. If you were to generalize it, what would be your perspective? And then we'll start digging into this whole situation of what's been happening recently in the rockets in Gaza and all that stuff.
I think that's a tough question to answer because of the fact that I have a lot of information that is the truth.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So a generalization coming from me knowing the truth is going to be different than a generalization coming from a Palestinian who doesn't know the truth.
Yep. Right.
But if it were based on my generalization of the situation, as I see it as a Christian,
yep,
as I see it as a Palestinian, it's Israel has the right to defend themselves as a United States Marine, as a federal law enforcement officer, as all the things I've done in my loyalty to the United States. We understand, and it's the crude old picture, but in war, to the victor go the spoils.
Yeah.
Right? And where I'm going with that is, and I'll double back on the generalization, is this country, the United States, is the greatest country on earth, and major countries in the world have been established through war and have increased their borders through war. Never did one give back territory to who they overcame and battled in war, whether they started it or not. Usually it wasn't started by us, and if it was, or other countries, you gain ground, you keep it. That's military 101.
Yep.
And so Israel has been patient with the Palestinians. And I've been there a number of times prior to the setting up of the wall. I had inside information and knowledge when Israel was coming down to the United States to see how we built our wall on the southern border because I was working there. And I'd see the delegations come. I'd see who they spoke to. They were learning about the underground detection techniques, the border wall, and they were looking to implement that. And that was in the mid to late 90s.
Yep.
because until then, all of Israel was open roads.
Yeah, that's right.
There was no border fence around Gaza. There was no border fence between West Bank and the other Israeli areas. But what happened was so many incursions came from those areas that Israel felt that they were left to no other recourse but to copy and mimic our border for more tangible reasons, and ours are the same today, terrorist threats.
With that in mind, let me go back and ask this question. When you talk about incursions, right, that type of thing, can you get a little bit more specific on that? Because there's a lot of generalizations that are being thrown out. I'm telling you, man, there's craziness being said right now that are founded in a lot of lies. What do you mean by that?
Well, incursions would be into sovereign Israeli territory that wasn't marked as West Bank, that wasn't marked as Gaza. And incursions of kibbutz, incursions into Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. And those incursions are basically, at the time, the PLO, Fatah, whatever other organizations, the PLA, when they finally established, were sanctioning individual men to go in and blow up buses in Tel Aviv, to shoot people at restaurants, to terrorist actions. And because they had such an open and porous border, Israel wasn't able to minimize or contain that. So their solution to the problem is what they saw America doing, what every country has the right to and has done since the beginning of time, is established a border and control entry and exit. And so Israel, from seeing history and what has happened and what they viewed as an open border threat, created the wall.
Okay, so do you see that in any way as being something that was like as a lot of people would call it, kind of an unjust, or there's a lot of people that are calling it apartheid right now. As a matter of fact, I'll play this video for you that you can watch. Again, I think it's fair for me to just simply say, full disclosure, I have no respect for this person. I think she's a con artist. I think she's a grifter. That's a whole other story to be said here. But she is about to make some associations with what's going on in Israel with things that happened in South Africa many years ago, right? And I'm going to get your opinions of this. Now, this is Patrice Collars. She is the founder, one of the founders of Black Lives Matter. And this is what she says.
Always. The other thing I'll say is Palestine is our generation South Africa. And if we don't step up boldly and courageously to end the imperialist project that's called Israel, we're doomed.
Credibility, number one factor from her, knowing the Black Lives Matter, knowing their organization, knowing what we know in hindsight after 2020, how corrupt, theft, the millions and millions they've taken from companies, and there's not one storefront, there's not one tangible asset that they've helped their community. I listen with skepticism, but also on the part you hear ignorance. Imperialism. Imperialism denotes more than just a country sitting somewhere. It denotes a country is expanding its borders, taking land, and a whole bunch of other factors in there. If you break it down to the simple word of imperialism and you denote just the one definition, it's incorrect. Comparing it to apartheid, she doesn't know history, world history, as most Americans who are on this bandwagon to support the Palestinian cause, which I support those people, their family out there. I pray for them every day for their safety, for the war to stop, for Hamas, which is a proxy of Hezbollah,
Yep.
and a proxy of Iran directly, and has no care of any sort for the Palestinian people because power and fear is their maintenance. So going back to her statement, Jerusalem was created by the Jews. The Jews were there long before the Palestinians were there.
Yep.
As you remember, the Romans insulted the Jews by calling Palestine,
Yep.
right, as a mocking because the Philistines were in the land there.
Yep.
And they wanted to compare them and denigrate them and say, oh, you're no better than these people. thousands of years before my people were there.
Yep.
And so she shows a flagrant ignorance of the people, of the history, of common meanings of words. And then she likens it, because these are key words that they do, to apartheid, to racism, to discrimination. How many times have we heard that thrown around in the last 3 years? To garner sympathy from people who are emotionally tied to the subject but not educated to the subject.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. I think there's a lot of wisdom there, and I think that's a very intelligent response to her, because I have a lot of things that might not necessarily be as free of emotion. I have a very hard time with her. So this is the perception right now that's being taught to a lot of people. And I want to throw this out because I want it to come out of your mouth. I'm not going to say it. I've been saying it a lot, but I would like it to come out of your mouth. And I'm not even going to prompt you to say what you're going to say. Well, let me do it this way. Let me ask you a question. I think it's a simple question, right? If you saw people like her protesting in the center of Gaza City with the pride people that she protests with and all the other people that she protests with, how well do you think it's going to go for them in the middle of Gaza City?
They wouldn't be there, number one. As tourists, they would. Let's be honest. Americans are ignorant for the most part. Not everybody, because as your audience shows, they're an educated group. And they're prideful in thinking that, as the country has, we can go take on the cause of a people we don't understand their culture,
Yep.
their lifestyles, their desires.
Yep.
For all intents purposes, we didn't learn much from Afghanistan. We threw money at those people by the truckload.
Yep.
And that's not what they wanted. That's not how they lived or what they lived for. So going back to her, and as you saw in, was it New York or somewhere else, that they had the pride flag and some group of people attacked them?
Yep.
Homosexuality is unacceptable in Shiite or Sunni religions.
That's right.
As Iran said, there are no homosexuals in Iran.
Yep.
Right. Because if they're out, they're dead. The rest of the Arab world is the same way. UAE, you're going to find that they are not open towards that. Now, does that make them, that's a whole another subject. Now we're going to black people, black Americans. Even recently, I've heard disparaging comments about black Muslims from Arabs, because they see those people as less than themselves. They don't see them, especially if we're talking about the American Muslims, black Muslims. They will say that's not the real religion. That's a sect.
That's right.
And they're not worthy. They're subpar to them. So it's ironic that for an intrinsic need, I think, to be honest with you, when you have Black Lives Matter, they're in media. Bad news is good because you're in publicity, and that's what they're drawing for.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So she's drawing for the attention to keep BLM active in people's mind. She's not a representative of Islam. She's not a representative of Sharia or Sunni.
That's right.
Or Shiite. And so, and they don't want her to be a representative. They have not contacted her. They're not soliciting her help.
Yeah.
So she would be in a very bad predicament, as anybody else would be, as I would be myself, a Palestinian American, for serving my country, the United States, for positions I've taken. I would not go over there. I haven't been over there in a number of years.
Yep.
Because the people know what I do. And even when I was younger, because I was American Palestinian, it was still considered not part of them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's dangerous. And the same group of people that are protesting for the Palestinians, they themselves would get squashed by that people group because of the Sharia law and Islam and sort of the culture and the idea. This is a language that we understand, but many people in the West here doesn't understand it.
And you and I know, as well as all the people in the Middle East, all they want to do is live, raise their families in peace. They're the most giving, hospitable, loving people when they're not manipulated into a wrong direction. And so they would give you go over there and they'll give you the only chicken they have for a week, the lamb that they have for the family for a month. And so the hospitality, as you and I can relate,
Oh, yeah.
is somewhat, and I do attribute it, to the Hispanic and to the Black cultures. I mean, we had a love for God, we had a love for family, right? But what they don't understand, and what I pity her and a lot of the Jewish organizations, Peace Not in Our Name, right? Those poor individuals are fighting a cause that they want to take up, that they would be martyred for. They were not the heroes to this cause.
Yeah.
If they were in that concert, was a peace concert that the Palestinians attacked. If they were there waving the Palestinian flag, saying "I love you," they would still be butchered because they're Jewish.
No, that's right.
Saying "We want peace, we want your land back," you would still be butchered or taken hostage.
100%.
It's that simple.
100%. It's 100% right. Okay, so let's get to the nitty gritty of all of this, because look, we are a little bit limited on the time that we have. We can't go for 4 years to talk about that complex of a situation, because this is an ongoing, throughout the years discussion. But if we were to encapsulate this in the small amount of time that we have, let's talk about what's been happening in Gaza. Now, we both have ties in many ways to this region, whether it be through our family history, whether it be through background. My mom, before I was born, was a missionary in Gaza for many, many years. I was raised hearing stories from my mother about the ministry in Gaza. And when she used to describe Gaza, Gaza was beautiful. Gaza was a place that was very, it was akin to a lot of what you would see in the Sinai and in that whole area. There's a lot of stories to be had there. But looking at what's happened recently, what's happened since 2005, the extension of Islamic Brotherhood. We've talked about Islamic Brotherhood before. If you really think about it, most people may already know this because I've talked about it a lot. But when we look at Hamas is an offshoot of Islamic Brotherhood. Islamic Brotherhood is very influential right now in Egypt because of what happened with Shawar al-Tahrir several years ago. When we talk about that whole situation with the Clinton State Department and during the same time of Benghazi and all of that, that was all happening there at that time. So that brings us into the complexities that we're seeing right now. And as complex as it is, it feels very simple in that this was not something that was warranted. How about we say it this way, right? These terrorists should not have done what they did. But what I'm hearing is a lot of people say, this is oppression. This is, it shouldn't be this way. All this evil that's being done to the Palestinian people, and what did you expect? The kettle finally blew, all of that. What's your perspective on this whole situation that's showed its ugly face in the last 3 or 4 weeks?
Again, those people have no information or knowledge of the history between the people, of the cultures, of the situation, what preceded this action through years and years of Hamas not negotiating with Israel, saying to the river, to the sea. I see these college professors and college students saying that, having what you're saying is genocide.
Yeah, from the river to the sea.
Because that's what that means.
Yep, that's
exactly what that. It doesn't mean throw them off the land. It means kill them all. And if you propose that kind of statement, what is that saying about your degenerate mind and your degenerate behavior? So it goes. There's a lot that goes back. And I was talking to you. We talked a while back that when our Marines, when I was in the Marine Corps, we were in Beirut. And Hezbollah came in, the Iranian government, and fanaticized the Lebanese leader who was at the time the leader of the group over there committing atrocities, and supported and funded his ability to blow up the French embassy, the Israelis, and the U.S. Marines over there. And that's the start of Hamas's creation, aligning itself with Lebanon's terrorism group, and all by Hezbollah. So these people that, if you had, to me, I keep saying, keep showing those pictures of what was done in Israel to the Jews. Keep showing the world. And it's crazy because there are deniers. I saw college students interviewed, said, "Oh, that didn't happen."
Oh yeah.
And that's why the United States military and the DoD took thousands of pictures when they went into Dachau, into Warsaw, everywhere, because they said, people won't believe this if we don't chronicle it and take pictures. And still, you have deniers. So, America, wake up, because all those college students, they're being fed through Twitter, through X, through all the media, not listening, not doing their research, not vetting. They're being led to erroneous and dangerous thinking. And as has been thrown around for years, if you don't stand up for them, when they come for you, who's going to stand for you?
No, it's very, very, very true. And I mean, you have a better footing with this because you worked counterterrorism for years and you understand how this all works. You get the mindset here. Here's something that's interesting. You also have a lot of experience with several different diplomatic corps, whether it be the United States diplomatic corps or foreign diplomatic corps. You've worked with me as we've worked with different diplomatic corps. I want to show you the Secretary General, him saying something that I'm going to just tell you, bro, to me is thoroughly disgusting. I'm only going to play the first couple of minutes of this. And then I'm going to stop and I'm going to have you respond. Now, he is responding to what has happened and the potential for a ground operation by Israel into Gaza. It has to happen. They have to do it. If they don't do it, look, our language, we understand Middle Eastern language. You don't respond in weakness. You don't.
The Arab country, it's bad enough. Let me interject.
Please.
This thing has been planning for, coincidentally, 2 years. Hi. Who was elected president a little over 3 years ago?
That is
right?
So right.
The weak posture has been demonstrated throughout the world. Now, again, we have China posturing, we have Korea posturing, right? Russia, just so happened, they went in because they knew what was going on to Ukraine, right? So we have these people and these incidences happening. And with the Arab culture, if you show any sign of weakness, you lose respect, and they will keep coming at you because that is the culture, that is the people. In business, in life, in family, in everything.
Man, it's so true. Let me play this for you. This is Gutierrez. Let me play it for you. Let me know what you think.
Excellencies, the situation in the Middle East is growing more dire by the hour. The war in Gaza is raging and risks spiraling throughout the region. Divisions are splintering societies, tensions threaten to boil over. At a crucial moment like this, it is vital to be clear on principles, starting with the fundamental principle of respecting and protecting civilians. I have condemned unequivocally the horrifying and unprecedented 7 October acts of terror by Hamas in Israel. Nothing can justify the deliberate killing, injuring, and kidnapping of civilians or the launching of rockets against civilian targets. All hostages must be treated humanely and released immediately and without conditions. And I respectfully note the presence among us of members of their families. Excellencies, it is important to also recognize the attacks by Hamas did not happen in a vacuum. The Palestinian people have been subjected to 56 years of suffocating occupation.
What do you think? I don't even need to play more. What?
I'm almost at a loss of words. For me, his accent is peculiar, similar to a German accent, which I find interesting. Number two, the occupation, he states 56 years. He's really justifying the terrorism that happened. This is the United Nations, who routinely votes against Israel on 99% of the matters. They're driven by homogeny of I don't know what, but it is not of valor or principles or anything that cares about its people. And he's talking about, he didn't mention for the last 3 years the thousands and thousands of rockets that have been launched into Israel from Gaza, that Israel has shown temperance at. Yes, there's going to be people suffering. You have a rabid dog that just bit a bunch of people and ran back into the woods. You have to chase that dog down and eliminate it. And it's unfortunate because Israel cannot make peace with these people because, number one, their charter states to the death of Israel.
Yep.
Number two, you make peace with a military force that came into your country, invaded your border, and killed thousands of people in the most atrocious and human war crimes manners. You have to eliminate those people. Can you imagine if Mexico or Canada were to do that to us, the United States, and what our response would be? And I feel, again, those are my relatives and families out there in Gaza. And on top of that, we have 2 battalions of my family again, the United States Marines out there. And so we went in 82. We went in peace. 83 of October, we were blown up when we were peacekeepers over there, the United States Marine Contingency.
That's right.
So we see what these people are capable of, unmitigated evil, and through no provocation. He's using Israel, given their land in 1948 by the world. Everybody agreed. He's using that as a pretense that they were occupiers, that they stole the land, and that they didn't have a right to it. All a lie.
Yeah. It's astounding. It's astounding. And look, no matter how you cut it, there's never an acceptable moment to say that their actions were justifiable, right? This whole in a vacuum nonsense that he runs, it is a satanically inspired rhetoric that is designed to make it palatable to do such a horrendous thing to the Jews all over again.
You know what that just reminded me of? The Democratic politicians who, when there were riots in the street, robbing jewelry stores and cameras and TVs and furniture, our Democratic politicians were saying, they've been oppressed for so many years. They weren't afforded the opportunities. This is the repatriation of what they earned and deserved.
It's absolutely right. And matter of fact, it's interesting because Talib, for example, and her buddy from Somalia is saying the same exact thing. And it is beyond my capacity to be able to understand or recognize the level of satanic inspiration that has to be in the heart of somebody that would justify such actions. It makes absolutely no sense.
Rashida Tlaib, if she would be back in our country, she would be cooking him jaddara, falafel,
we all know that.
and taking care of the kids.
We all know that, Habibi. We all know that.
This posturing she takes here because of her constituency, which is Michigan and Detroit and those areas. I've been there and I love the area. I love the people. Those are my people. They're misguided and as they're manipulated.
Yep. I'm going to show you this picture, Mason. I don't know if you've seen this. One of my friends from the Israeli Defense Force gave this to me. It's really interesting and it tells a lot. I've actually been playing this in a lot of my videos and I've been showing it. I don't know if you know what this is, but if you look at this, this is Gaza, okay? And what's interesting with this picture that you're actually looking at is that all the areas that are the darker dots are where the rocket launching sites are, or the rocket launching sites that Gaza has built, the rockets that they built. Everywhere where you actually see a lighter color, right? Like the lighter dot is where those rockets have ended up landing. So if you think about this, bro, if you look at the number on this picture, this is since the 21st or up until the 21st, 5,000, just a little bit over 5,000 rockets were launched from Gaza intended to go into Israeli targets. And of that, over 10%, 550 have hit civilian targets.
In Gaza.
In Gaza.
Correct.
Not Israeli targets, civilian targets. And it's interesting to see that. And the people in Gaza that are doing this, Hamas, they're rejoicing because they know they're going to be able to take this and blame Israel. And I want to show you something else that's really interesting because I've brought it up to a few people before. If you look at the very bottom of this, of the very bottom of Gaza, right, that area, did you notice along the border, all of the darker dots? They're just along the border. Okay. Yes. So the design of that is to set those rockets there so that as they begin to launch rockets from that area, they'll draw fire from Israel into that portion of the border in hopes that something will be destroyed on the Egyptian side of that border and force Egypt into a retaliation function against Israel.
It's an understandable tactical move.
And they're putting it, by the way, they're putting these dots over hospitals. They're launching them off of ceilings of roofs of schools. That's what this is. What do you say about that?
Well, we know that designated Israeli bases in Israel are that designated. You know this is an army compound you're going through, by, or into. There is no such thing in Gaza. Everything is underground. That is a 2 million people populous area in an 8-mile lengthwise area. You have military bases there, but they're not in the open because they know they'd be targeted. So where are they? Under schools, under mosques, under anything that can, under hospitals, under Christian hospitals, under Arab hospitals, and everything. Yep. We've seen the network of tunnels that are in there. And I liken this, and it's interesting because I was talking to somebody, it's reminiscent of tunnel rats in Vietnam.
Yep.
It's reminiscent of what we at the southwest border of the United States have to deal with narco tunnels. The difference is a big difference is those Arab actors have had years and years to build tunnels in friendly territory. And some of them have excursions into Israel itself.
Yeah.
And so you look into them, and these things are very well built. They are engineered, designed, and built because they're under tons and tons of building and people. And going to that, the rocket tactic. I listened to an interview. It wasn't an interview. It was an interview of an Israeli soldier talking to a Palestinian in Gaza. And he was telling the Palestinian, and many Israelis are multilingual. There are Israeli Arabs who serve. There are Arabs who came over from Yemen and other countries who are Israeli. And so they speak the language fluently, the Levant and other aspects of the language. And he asked, "We're telling you guys to leave. Please leave." And the Palestinian man in Gaza says, "We can't." And the interpreter, again, the soldier said, "Why can't you leave?" Because they're putting roadblocks in. He didn't want to say Hamas, but he said, this is Gaza. The Israel incursion is not in those areas. He says, they're not letting us leave because they're setting up roadblocks.
Yeah, and this is very true, very powerful. And look, Mason, we're running out of time. I wanted to play a video for you that you actually turned my attention to. I believe you're the one that sent this to me. This is this 4-minute video that you sent me of this Palestinian man who has a very interesting perspective on what's going on. He's addressing the United Nations in this discussion. It's very interesting. I'm not even going to play the son of the Hamas founder,
Mossab.
Which is Mossab. He's another guy. Very interesting guy. As a matter of fact, I covered him on one of my recent videos, and I did another one on my video that I did on Friday. I covered him as well. But this is, you just have to, I've played this before. I really want people to hear your reaction to this because we've talked about this already. So let's play this.
When standing here in Brussels, I am in a safe spot. Basically, we, the Palestinian Jordanian people, the Palestinians are the chosen people of the European Parliament. People in the European Parliament love the Palestinians. They care for them. They dream about us in their sleep. How beautiful. They care about how we are oppressed by the evil Zionist Israelis, while, in fact, those evil Zionist Israelis are the ones giving us jobs. They are the ones giving us jobs when Lebanon bans us from all forms of jobs. when the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan, which occupied 78% of our homeland, prevents us from all kinds of jobs, the king of Jordan could come and present here and talk about peace and human rights, while Israeli politicians could get arrested for arriving at your airports. At the same time, we see not a single European member of parliament, not a single European politician speaking about the oppression of the Palestinians at the hands of the Hashemite kingdom or the Palestinian authorities. On the other hand, your money, your tax euros are financing the Palestinian police force, which oppresses us, tortures us, and puts us in disappearance. This happens while you guys are obviously caring for us in good intentions, but your judgment is very cloudy. Unfortunately, most of you are seeking to destroy the very and only source of income and stability that we have, which is the Israeli Jewish state. That state has offered us every hope there is in the last 70 years. We disagree with Israel on different issues. We have several issues with Israel. Israel is not an angel, nor was Belgium an angel in Africa, nor was the United States an angel in Vietnam, nor was Jordan an angel as of today. You have to be fair and square to achieve justice. Justice is collective. You can't grant us justice by denying justice to our Jewish neighbors. They are our neighbors. 500,000 Palestinians every single day cross the borders to work in Israeli settlements, in Israeli homes, in Israeli hospitals. They work there, achieving European standard payments versus the non-payments of the Palestinian Authority. Oslo has brought us all everything that's evil, everything but happiness, and nothing but despair and disasters. At the same time, I can't see that the European Parliament nor the European governments understand that they are an accomplice, knowingly or unknowingly, to our disastrous situation by being against the only source of hope that we have. Why are you denying me and my people the right to live normally, the right to find jobs by supporting BDS? BDS means no jobs for us, no jobs for Israelis. And when the Israelis move out and the companies move out, do you sign our paychecks when we run out of jobs? No, you don't. And let me tell you something. The only people you sign paychecks to are the Palestinian Authority corrupts and criminals, Abbas and others. You need to know, you are singing a very old tune. Most of you, I understand, most of you are good people, but you are playing an old video. This game is over. Oslo is dead. We are telling you it's time to accept change, and it's time to embrace our Jewish friends, neighbors, brothers, and sisters. We are going that way. Most Palestinians cannot say publicly what I'm saying here. We want peace with Israel. We have had enough of this mythical lie of the conflict.
Final words, bro.
He's telling it as it is. I wish Americans can see this from a Palestinian man who probably had to leave Palestine and live somewhere else because of what Oslo, because of what the European Union is doing, because what America is doing. Hey, I liken it, and I don't want to say the people in the party, but if you have what you denote to the world as an oppressed people, you have a platform. That platform brings you money. That platform brings you attention. But the only way to keep that platform alive and the money coming is keep subjugating those people to despair, desperate times, and wicked things. By keeping that and the Palestinians in the situation they are and saying there's no peace and to give them the land, they have an oppressive people that they fight for, but they don't care about them because it's just money in their pockets.
Dude, amen. And you guys get a pretty good picture on why he's one of my advisors. You know, Mason's got a lot of wisdom here. And, you know, we talk about this every day. I mean, we have these conversations on a pretty regular basis. And I want to give you one word of encouragement, everybody, as we wrap this interview up. Take what you've heard today and tell people about it. Tell the truth, whether it be in your own words. Sit down, have meaningful conversations, play portions of this interview. Let people know what's really going on out there. Because if you can sit down to just stop for a moment to reflect upon what the facts are and then put that together to help people understand what's really happening, I think it would completely change your perspective on what's going on in the region. I'm not asking you to become geopolitical experts. I'm not even asking you guys to really understand our background or our culture or our history. But what I am asking you to do is to be objective about the things that you're watching and listen very carefully and watch. Use your own common sense. And more than ever, get into the Word of God, because the Word of God will give you the direction you need to be able to come to these conclusions with conviction. It's really, really simple. So that's what I would have to say. Mason, any final words, bro, before we wrap it up?
I always think about when I read the Bible and I hear pastors and teachers, the Bereans.
Yeah, amen.
Who looked and listened to what was being said and compared it to what was written.
Yep.
You do that and you will be fine.
Amen, bro. Yeah, wow. What a great time. Thank you.
Thank you for
I think our friendship, our brotherhood that we have together, I think it's easy to take those things for granted, but I wanted everybody to get a glimpse. You know, and people know who you are already. You've been on many of my shows in the past, but I think it's good for people to understand the perspective here. So thank you, Habibi. We love you. Guys, keep fighting the good fight, right? This thing is real. Yeah, there's a real spiritual war out there, and keep engaging, okay? Love you guys. God bless you.